श्री गणेशाय नमः, श्री जानकी वल्लभ विजयते, श्री द्वारिकाधीशाय नमो नमः. Namaskar. Today we'll continue our study of Bṛhajjātakam, and like in the previous class, Shri Bhattotpal's Dashadhyay will serve as one of the core commentaries. We'll also use other commentaries in the process of finding the true import of the words of Shri Baraha Mihir. On the basis of the feedback that some of you found it difficult to understand the shlokas because there was nothing that was presented, I have decided to do a basic presentation where the meanings of the words will be available before you when I start with the shloka. So we now, after having discussed the first shloka, where Shri Varamir prays to his Ishta Devata, and requests him to give Vak Sakti and the words needed to complete the work. So we'll just do a little bit of revision here. Murtitve Parikalpita Shashabhrito Vartama Punarjanmana Mat Metyatma Vidam कृतुश्च यजतां भर्तामर ज्योतिषां लोकानां प्रलयोदय स्थिति विभुश्चानेकधा यः श्रुतौ वाचं न सदधात्वनेक किरणैस्त्रैलोक्य दीपो रविः यह रविः त्रैलोक्य दीप अनेक किरण मूर्तित्वे शशभृत परिकल्पितः. So basically, the sun, who is endowed with many rays and lights up all the three lokas, and who is known to cause the different phases of moon, because of which life on earth is possible. He is requesting to that sun as Parabrahma. How is he requesting to him as Parabrahma? Because he also says that he is a Punarjanmanan Vartma. Those who are seeking eternal salvation or moksha, he provides the path for those. And who can provide the path for those? Brahma himself. So here, Surya has been talked as Brahma. So, on the basis of the system of Panchadevata Upasana, whoever is your Ishta, you can reach Brahma taking his help and considering him as Brahman himself. Ātmanivedana, Atma Itimam, the very soul of the sages. Like I talked yesterday, this is about the Vishishtadvaitic philosophy, wherein Brahma acts as the very soul of everything, and the Jada Chetana, every existent living and non-living things in the universe form the body of that Parabrahma. So Ātmanivedana, Atma Itimam. Yajatam Krituhu Cha, the very process of sacrifice for the dedicated. So for those who are Purva Mimanshakas, who depend on Karma Kanda, he forms the process of sacrifice and helps them move out of the cycle of birth and death. Amar Jyotisham Bharta, one who is the Lord of Deva and the Lord of all the Grahas, as the owner of the planetary council. Lokanam Pralayodaya Sthiti Vibhu. As Brahman, he is the one who causes dissolution, creation, and sustenance of the world, because that is what the function of Brahman is. It is not really correct to say that is what the function of Brahman is, because Brahman is the ultimate authority. He is everything. So basically, someone who causes dissolution, creation, sustenance. Shrutau Anekadha, someone who is invoked in numerous ways by Vedas. Vedas are also called Shruti. Navacham Dadhatu, may grant us Vak Siddhi so that we can correctly identify and discern the results of present, past, and future. That is one meaning. And second is he's requesting him to give him the right words to complete the work that he has taken upon himself, which is to complete this text called Bṛhajjātakam. Of this shloka, we have discussed in significant details in video 1. Now going to the second shloka. Here it is Pūrvācārya Stuti, Ātmanivedana, as well as the Adhikāra. Bhuyo bhihi patubuddhibhi patudhiyam hora phalagyapyate gyaptaye sabda nyaya samanviteshu bahushash shastreshu drishtveshvapi Hora Tantra Maharnava Pratarane Bhagnodyamanamaham Swalpam Vratta Vichitram Artha Baulam Shastra Plavam Prarabhe. He says that I am creating a boat in the form of this Shastra. This text is in the form of a boat which will help you get across the unfathomable sea of Hora Shastra. Hora Shastra, like we talked in the last video, is the science of predictive astrology, the science of individual horoscopy, on the basis of which you can know the past, present, and future of individual humans. Sri Varame writes that a lot of Acharya, a lot of sages in the past who were Patu Buddhibhi. Patu Buddhibhi means endowed with extremely incisive intellect, who are very intelligent. They have written a lot of texts. Sabda Nyaya Samanviteshu Bahushastreshu Drashtvepi. So, they have written a lot of texts with just the right Shabda. When he says Shabda here, he basically, it can also go on to mean Nirukta. Nirukta is one of the Vedanga, the ways that you understand words. The rules for understanding words of Shastra is Shabda. Nyaya is analytical philosophy, logic. Samanviteshu, combining words, the right words and the right logic. Bahusha Sastreshu Drishtvepi, a lot of texts have been written by whom? Bhuyo bhi, a lot of Patu Buddhibhi, very intelligent people in the past. And who were they meant for? They were meant for Patu Dhiyah. Dhi Shakti is again intelligence, for people who are very intelligent. Hora Phala Gyapyate. What was the purpose of them? To understand the results of individual horoscopy. So a lot of sages have already written. Why am I writing so? Because it is Kali Yuga, and in Kali Yuga, compared to the earlier three yugas, that is Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga, people will have short lives, short memories and dim intellect. Because they have short minds, short memory and short intellects, what is happening is Hora Tantra Maharnava Pratarane. While trying to cross the ocean of Hora Tantra, Hora Tantra here has been likened to an ocean. While trying to cross the ocean of Hora Tantra, Maharnava is deep, unfathomable, very wide ocean. Pratarane, trying to cross it. So this is Rupa Kalankara. While trying to cross the ocean of Hora Tantra, Bhagnodyamanamaham. That is, their efforts came to a naught. Their ships were wrecked while trying to do this. Because in Kali Yuga, understanding these texts, which are endowed with perfect words and perfect logic, has become very difficult. So even though there are many texts which are available in my time, this is Varaham here saying, I am writing a text to help those who, despite all the efforts they have made, have not been able to understand Jyotisha Shastra, Jataka Jyotisha Shastra properly. And therefore, I am writing a Swalpam, a text that is very small in size. So that is Swalpam. However, since it is small in size, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have substance. It is Artha Bahulam. Vritta Chitram plus Artha Bahulam. So Artha Bahulam means every shloka is impregnated with multiple meanings. The deeper you get into this Swalpa Shastra, and it is Shastra Plavam. Shastra Plavam, this text is in the form of a boat. What kind of boat? Vritta Vichitram. Vritta Vichitram can mean two things. One is, it is like a circular boat. Circular boat means that It is different from the other boats that you see in a river, which are not circular in shape. The other means is vritta. Vritta is chandas. Chanda is meter. The different meter in which Sanskrit texts are written are called chandas. So, in different kind of chanda, I am going to write this shastra in order for people to be able to go through this Hora Tantra Maharnava, so that they can cross the deep ocean of Hora Tantra with ease. That is what Sri Varahamihir means to say here. Now, a similar sort of philosophy is also seen in the Bṛhajjātakam Hora Shastram. In the Bṛhajjātakam Hora Shastra, Maitreyi Muni also says the same thing to Parashara Muni. Sankarattu phalanam cha grahanam gati sankarat नान्येय मिदृश्यति परिच्छेत्तु मलन्नराः कलौ युगे ततोल पैव बुद्धि पापोत्तरा नराः in Kali Yuge tatah alpaiva buddhi, very small minds, peanut shaped size brains, papottara nara, plus people will be given to different kind of sins. Since they will be given to different kind of sins, they will not have the tapobala to understand things, to imbibe the meaning of things from the universe. Tato na chasya prachaya gamanam na prayojanam. अत्र त्रेता युगे केचे द्वापरे च कृते युगे कुशाग्रमतयः सर्वे पुण्यभाजश्चिरायुष अतोल्प बुद्धिगम्यं यत शास्त्रमेतद्वदस्वमे आयुश्च लोकयात्रा च शास्त्रेऽस्मिन् द्वे प्रयोजने निश्चेतुं को न शक्नोति वसिष्ठो वा बृहस्पतिः किं पुनर् Manujas Tatra Visheshattu Kalo Yuge. He says that in Dwapar, Treta, and Satyuga, people were endowed with divine qualities, plus they had very sharp intellects and healthy bodies. But in Kali Yuga, none of these things are found. Second, Maitreyi Maharshi does Nivedana to Maharshi Parashara, saying that the determination of longevity and Loka Yatra, how the life will be in this world, are the two main purposes of Hora Shastra. To understand it correctly, to determine it correctly, is difficult even for Vasishtha and Brihaspati, sages of that caliber. Kim Punar Manuja Sastra Visheshatta Kalo Yuga. So, what to say about ordinary men of Kali Yuga who by nature are intellectually inadequate? So, this is for people who are intellectually inadequate, who cannot understand the Purva Grantha by Pūrvācāryas that Shivaramir just talked about, and therefore he is writing it. In writing this, he is also sort of self-deprecating himself. This is the medium of Ātmanivedana. He is saying, I am no one in comparison to people who wrote the texts in the past. Therefore, I am writing a small Shastra Plava and I am setting it afloat. Shastra Plavam Prarabhe. I am setting it afloat, this boat afloat, for people to be able to do that. Now, there are some additional layers of meanings. While Sri Bhattotpal has been very critical of the kind of people who will ultimately read this book, the other scholars are not in agreement, and I tend to agree with them. The other meaning here is, you can come to this Shastra only after you have a good understanding of Shabda and Nyaya. That is, you understand words, you understand logic. Unless you have studied Bahush Shastreshu Drishtveshi, you have studied a lot of texts in a lot of subjects, which is also in line with the quality of an astrologer that Sri Varahamihir talks about in the Brihad Samhita. So that would mean that the Adhikāra is that you come endowed with a good understand of grammar, with a good understand of language, a good understanding of language, Sanskrit language and Sanskrit grammar in this place, and a good understanding of Nyaya. Nyaya, that is Tarka. Tarka, that is the ability to discern the right logic from the wrong logic. In astrology, Nyaya is very important because the same configuration can lead to different results for different persons with a very small variation. To be able to discern just the right result and to be able to give the right predictions about the future as well as discern the present and the past, Nyaya is very important. So the Adhikāra of this text stays with people who have a good understanding of Nyaya and Shabdam and who has come. There is another meaning here that some of the scholars tell us, that even when people have become experts in grammar, people have become experts in Nyaya and other Vedanga, they find it very difficult to understand Jyotisha Shastra, which is the highest of the Vedangas, as that is the Nayana, that is the eyes of the Veda. Since it is the eyes of the Veda and one of the most difficult Shastra to get a hold of, even by people who have mastered the other Vedantas, other Vedangas. Therefore, Sri Varahamihir has written this text to make it easier for people to understand. But even then, good intelligence and expanse of knowledge when it comes to different subjects of necessity in human life, like sociology, like psychology, like economics. All of these need to be understood well by an astrologer to discern the past, the present, and the future. Next, we go to the third shloka. The third shloka is Horetya Horatra Vikalpa Meke Vanchati Purva Para Varna Lopat Karmarjitam Purva Bhave Sadadi Yatyasya Pakting Sama Bhivya Nakti. Here it is Eke Hora iti Ahoratra Vikalpam Purva Para Varna Lopat Vanchati. Some authorities interpret the word Hora as derived from Ahoratra. So see here, this is the word Ahoratra. Ahoratra is composed of Ahas and Ratra. Ahas is day, Ratra is night. So the cycle of day and night is starting from sunrise and completing just before the next sunrise is called Ahoratra. So Hora is derived by removing the Purva Para. Purva letter is A, Para letter is Tra. So if I remove A and Tra, I have Hora. So he says this is one opinion. The other opinion is you just consider it as Jataka Shastra. So Saravali gives the second opinion also. So for those of you who don't know, Saravali can be seen as an extension of Bṛhajjātakam. So what does Saravali say? Jātakamiti prasiddham yal loke tadiha chinteti hora. So the second meaning is just in terms of Jataka. But Sri Varahamihir considers this opinion as correct, that Hora is derived from Ahoratra. And what is the purpose of this text? Karmarjitam Purva Bhave Sadadi Yatyasya Pankting Samabhivya Nakti. Yat Purva Bhave Karmarjitam Sat Aditasya Paktim Samabhivya Naktim. So this Shastra reveals accurately the sequence of good and bad deeds performed in previous life. When it says sequence of good and bad deeds, the results of those good and bad deeds in terms of good effects and bad effects that you will see in this life, that can be seen perfectly from it. The movement of sun from morning to evening basically defines a lot of things. It defines the definition, the division of day into hora. the different planetary hours. That is one. Next is this entire period from sunrise to sunrise is divided into 8 parts called Ashtayama. So there are 8 yamas or periods that are divided. On the basis of sun's movement in those yama, we calculate a lot of things like Yamaganda, Gulika, etc., which are of use in both Jataka, Muhurta, as well as Prashna Shastra. So that also explains why the movement of Surya defining the Ahoratra is what ultimately leads to Hora Shastra. And you'll find that Hora also, beyond a point, covers 3 things. One is Jatakam, which is individual horoscopy. Next is Prashna, horary horoscopy. Please pardon my writing. And finally, Muhurta, which is electional astrology. And also Shakuna Shastra, Nimitta, which is the art of telling future from an analysis of the environment, whether there are good omens and bad omens, the signs of omens. So all these 4 things can be understood from sun. For example, the movement of sun in different directions, starting from the last Yamardha, the last Ashtayama of the previous day, we assign different names to the directions, and on the basis of different names to the directions, a lot of things in Muhurta, Shakuna, as well as Prashna are interpreted. Therefore, this also tells us the purpose. The purpose is to know that because of the deeds, good and bad, that were performed in last birth, what are the results that we are going to see in this birth. So, Hora Shastra's primary concern is not to analyze the actual events of the past birth as much as to analyze the ultimate result of the events of those births. Next, there is a sign mapping that happens to body parts. That is the 4th shloka. Kalangani varanga manana muro rit koda vaso brito vastir vyanjana muru janu yugale janghe tatom घ्रि द्वयम मेषाश्वि प्रथमा नवर्क्ष चरणाश्च कृस्थिता राशयो राशि क्षेत्र गृहक्षभानि भवनश्चैकार्थ संप्रत्ययाः. So what he says is the time limbs are excellent face and head, chest, heart, abdomen, sides, region, bladder, private parts, thigh, knee pair, calves, and then pair of feet. What does he actually mean? So first he says signs have to be counted from Ashwini Aries. So this is the sidereal zodiac. We are not understanding it from tropical zodiac, where Aries is counted from Basanta Sampat, which is the vernal equinox. We are looking at a fixed star in the sky, which is Ashwini, and from there we are counting the signs. Therefore, the thing about sidereal zodiac is very, very clearly mentioned. And he says there are many names for it: Rashi, Kshetra, Griha, Riksha, Bhani, and Bhani and Bhavanaha. These are different names. So this has been explained variously by different commentators to mean that, be that Prashna or Jataka, you need to look at the chart from at least 6 perspectives. What are those 6 perspectives? We will understand that once we get into detail from the next session. Now, here the parts have been assigned the different body parts. What are the different body parts that the parts have been accurately assigned to? Aries has been assigned to the head, which makes sense. From here, from the eyebrows up to the back of the head above the neck. This is the association of Aries. Taurus is face. So from below the eyebrows to our chin, including the ears, the nose, the teeth, all of them are Taurus. Gemini is the upper part of the chest. It should include the throat, the neck, and the upper part of the chest. That is Gemini. Cancer represents the heart. Leo represents the stomach. When you read some of the Pūrvācārya texts, you will find slightly different associations. But since we are talking about Bṛhajjātakam, we will continue with the associations that have been given by Shivaramer. Virgo is waist. Libra is the lower abdomen and pelvic area. Scorpio are the private parts. Sagittarius is thighs. Capricorn knees. Aquarius calves, and Pisces are feet. This is the way that different associations have been given. Now, these associations are important in many ways. This is called the Kāla Puruṣa. The association that we have just learned in the Kāla Puruṣa Kundali is very important in different aspects of astrology. One is it finds a lot of use in medical astrology. Second is its use in finding the Arudha in Prashna. While asking a particular question, if the Prechaka, that is the questioner who has come to you, accidentally touches a body part, then the equivalent sign to that body part can safely be considered as the Arudha Lagna. In Prashna, there are many Lagnas that are very important. The Udaya Lagna is the Lagna at the time of the question. So, the chart that I draw at the time a Prashna is asked is the Udaya Lagna. But in Prashna, there is also an Arudha Lagna, the enthroned sign, and a lot of answers are actually given from Arudha. There are many methods of finding the Arudha, but one of the most important methods of finding the Arudha is what I have just talked about. Okay. So Shivaramer has now given us an explanation of the different body parts. Now, different body parts with different signs. Now, as we go ahead, we'll understand more about the signs in the next lecture. And we'll also understand the further utility of this definition and this association that has been given of different signs, different rashis with different body parts. So in the next session, we'll take it forward. Till then, namaskar. See you again soon.